I started as a freshman back in 2013. I went through undergrad in biology, realized going into my senior year what I was doing wasn't right for me. And so I switched and I got my master's in education really to put off having to make that career decision. And then in my final semester of my master's degree, I still didn't really know what was going on. And I've picked up an internship in the career development office because I thought it sounded kind of cool. I had a career counseling class. It was pretty fun. And I loved it. I loved every moment of it. Halfway through the semester, my supervisor left. And so her job just literally fell into my lap.
Oh, wow.
And so I stayed at SDSU.
Making connections and pursuing job prospects is an important part of a college student's journey. At SDSU, the Office of Career Development connects students with employers to help them gain experience, income, and future careers. Stephen Miedema is a career coach and career education coordinator here at State. He is here today to speak about how students can connect with employers for jobs, internships, or pursue their future career after graduation. Thanks for being here today, Stephen. So through your own experience, I mean, you help students find what they're looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's one of the really cool things. Honestly, I think I have like the most rewarding job because I'm there for all of the victories for students. They come in, maybe it's as a freshman, they're not really sure about their major, or they have a major, or mom and dad told them to pick a major. And then we have to talk about, well, what can you do with the major? Or how do we go about talking to people about how you switch a major? Just find those things that you could find fun. And then students, when it clicks, and it's cool. I get to see the light behind their eyes when they get really excited. Or they're hesitant because they have to write a resume and they haven't done that before. So how do we help them through that? How do we write that, get that experience down? And then eventually it's finding an internship. Oh, I found my dream internship. I want to apply to be an intern at Disney for the summer. How do we do that? So we find those victories there too. And then eventually it's getting the full-time job and they get their first paycheck, and I get a lot of emails, which is really cool. Just telling me that they got that job. So it is a lot of fun. When
you're helping students, is it hard to help them find opportunities, or do you have like a lot of employers that come to you? Like, how does that relationship work with like the students and the employees?
We do have a lot of need, in South Dakota. I'm sure you've heard, everybody hears about the low unemployment, and so it really is an applicant's market, which is awesome. Sometimes it's almost too many job opportunities and can be intimidating to students. But for the most part, what happens is we kind of have two parts of our office. I run more of the more of the student side. And then Becky, our assistant director of employer engagement, she runs more of that employer side. So we field emails and phone calls all day long from employers. Hey, we want your students. Hey, we want your students. So what we usually do is we refer them all to Handshake, which is our career portal. And through our career portal, we'll have all those job postings there. And then students are able to sign into Handshake, and then they can see all those postings. So rather than sending them emails nonstop about it, it's really a curated way for them to see all of these opportunities. And that's not just here locally. That's across the country. We even had a student a couple of years ago who found a job in Japan for the summer.
Wow.
And so he got his plane tickets paid for, his room and board paid for, and he got to go and live and work and do research in Japan. There's opportunities everywhere. It's really cool to see our students be really, really successful.
Right? And I mean, on every level, too. You're not just helping students, like, find their future career or internship. Like, we're having students move in on Friday, and a lot of them are probably looking for jobs when they come to campus just for money to spend while they're here. You guys help with that, too.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you got to come to college. You have to pay for college, right, if you're going to come to college. And so we do really like it when students get part-time jobs. We see some really cool things. We actually see that students who work part-time have better grades than those who don't.
Really?
So it's really cool. I think a lot of it is, students are able to have a little bit more structure to their week. We know college is a little unorganized sometimes. And so that's really nice. The other part of it, too, is if a student gets a part-time job that's a relevant part-time job to their major, well, hey, it commits to them like, this is really cool. This is what we want. So we do make sure we start off really strong working on those part-time jobs. We actually have our part-time job fair coming up. It's the second week of classes. It's August 31st from 3 to 5:30 p.m., and that's in the VBR in the union. So it's right now we have 42 employers registered. We're going to probably end up with a couple more by the time it happens, and it's a really great way for students to just come and see what's available. So I really push all students to go to it, even if they're not looking for a part-time job right now. You never know when you might need a part-time job later on. So it's good to know what the options are.
Right. What are some examples of some employers that are coming to that fair?
So we're going to have a lot of people from campus. So Sodexo is going to be there. They're doing a big hiring push right now. We also have, facilities and services on campus, residential life, union event management. And then off campus, there's a lot of companies, Walmart comes. 3M is going to be there. Larson Manufacturing will be there. Valley Queen and Cheese will be there. We're going to have, a couple other companies like Advance. Some of our other healthcare providers will be there too as well. And so there always is a really good mix. We'll even have computer science companies that are coming. And that always surprises me that they can have part-time jobs in something like computer science. Right. But there are opportunities available.
Right. Good way to kind of get your feet wet to see if it's something you want to do for a career or, it sounds like there are a lot of different jobs to suit what people are looking for. Like if you're looking for a job on campus, there are opportunities for that. If you want to work at a local business, there are opportunities for that too. Sounds like a really good variety, like you said.
Yeah, absolutely. I think right now I was looking, we have on Handshake, we have over 96 job postings for part-time jobs alone in Brookings through Handshake. And employers will post outside of there too. But the fact that there's 96 means that that's 96 different job postings. Some of those could be hiring for multiple students. And so really, if we look at it, there's hundreds of job openings for those part-time jobs right now. And those can't all be in one area. Those are going to be in all different industries represented, which is a cool thing about Brookings, that we do have such a large variety for as small of a town as we are.
Yeah, exactly. So students shouldn't have any excuse not getting a job when they come to campus if they're really looking for one.
If they want one, they can find one. Just come and talk to me and we'll help them out.
So you guys not only help students through the hiring process, but you offer different services to help them get there too, like resume building, different things like that, interviewing skills. Tell me about what services the Office of Career Development offers.
Yeah, so this is really the career coaching side of my job title. As a career coach, I'm really there for everything when it comes to career readiness. So it could be, how do you find jobs in the first place? Every student is told, oh, you have to go and find an internship. Well, what does that mean? What is an internship? So we're here for that. We're here for writing a resume. We see that probably about 60% of our students have resumes when they get to college. Whether it's a college-ready resume or not, it kind of depends. So I really do push for most of my first year and second year students to really get that first resume done and then keep that updated. So we do everything with helping write documents like resumes, writing cover letters. That's a really confusing thing that a lot of people get caught up on. Or it's stuff like interview prep. So we'll help students get ready. We'll give them practice interviews. And then we also do a lot of grad school help too. So help students write personal statements. So literally just got done working with a dental student right before I walked in. So really fun variety. Again, it goes back to the fun part of my job is I get to work with students at every level. And we do really work with all students. It's everybody from incoming freshmen to seniors to grad students, PhD, masters. I also work with alumni too. So that's always fun at new student orientation. I was able to talk even with one mom who she had graduated from SDSU but has been a stay-at-home mom for a long time. Well, because she graduated from SDSU, she always gets to use our services for free. So we worked with her to schedule an appointment, and I helped her write a resume so she could start applying to jobs again. So
that is really cool.
It is. It is really cool. There's a lot of other universities that will offer career coaching for 2 or 3 years after graduation, but we offer it really indefinitely. So it's really cool. I always say, as long as you're a jackrabbit, I'll work with you.
That's awesome. That's a good piece of advice. When you said you were helping students with graduate schools and interviews and stuff that way, what do you mean by that? Like them trying to get into a certain grad school or trying to get a PhD, or what are you referring to?
Yeah, so we'll help with that application process to get into those. So we'll have, some grad schools will have a very structured process, if we're looking at professional schools. So when I say professional schools, I mean medical school, dental school, optometry, law school is another one where it's a very rigid, structured process. And then on the other side of that, there's what we typically think of as grad school, which is things like a master's degree or a PhD, where it's a lot more research focused. And that ends up surprisingly being a lot more like a job application than what most students think of when they're applying to undergrad, because it's, a research professor. Well, hey, if they know you and they're willing to go to bat for you, they'll help you get into that program. But most of the time, students will still have to write a personal statement, or they'll still have to write their resume and do that application. And so really that's where I help students with it's what I call personal branding. It's how do you market yourself on paper and in an interview, just to make sure they get that across in a way that everybody can understand, because those people who are working on like admissions committees aren't necessarily, a researcher in the lab. It might be somebody who's just tasked on that committee. And so I really have to help students, especially when it comes to research, talk about the research in a way that everybody can understand.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense, because like, for example, you said professional schools, like medical schools, like those processes can be super rigorous. You take the MCAT, you got to get a good score, you got to market yourself, got to put down probably what courses you took on a resume, and then work on your interviewing skills, because you're interviewing in front of a committee. That's really cool to know that you guys help for that next step, even though it's not necessarily a job, it's the next step towards your future career.
Yeah, really, it's career readiness, and careers, it doesn't mean you have to have a job right away after school. There's lots of students who go and do other things other than jobs. They go and they do internships. They do life experience things like joining Peace Corps or AmeriCorps, where they get some really great experience. It doesn't have to be traditional, go find your 9-to-5 job that you work the rest of your life. It's go and find what that next piece is. And in my office, we really are able to have the flexibility to work with students for whatever that is that comes up.
Right. And as you said, you work with people on helping them sell themselves. That's a really big deal. You can have all of the skills, but if you interview bad, or, if your resume doesn't say things that are necessarily applicable, people may pass you by, even though you may be very qualified for that job. What would you say is like a common issue you have when you're trying to work with students on selling themselves?
Yeah, so one of the big things that I see with students when they're selling themselves is they're not selling themselves. What they'll do is they'll sell what their job duties were, right? You look at a resume and think, I need to put down everything I did. So they write down that they wiped off countertops, that they swept floors, that they took orders, right? They're working as a server or something. Well, say you have a part-time job as a server. It's an amazing job. I've actually worked in a restaurant for the last 18 years. But when I was applying to SDSU, did they care that I knew how to take customers' orders? Did they care that I knew how to wipe down a countertop? No. What they cared about was that I had the customer service experience, that I could talk to people, that I was comfortable interacting with lots of different types of people. And so really what I work with students a lot is, well, okay, we can have those duties that you did, but a lot of part-time jobs aren't super relevant. So we have to talk about what is relevant. And those are what we call transferable skills. And so it's working with students to identify what is it that you bring to the table that might not necessarily be job-related. Maybe they're applying to a job as an engineer. Well, guess what? Taking customer orders might not be directly relevant, but as an engineer, you're going to have to work with clients. You're going to have to talk with your team. And that communication skills is still going to be relevant.
Exactly. All great points. Students who are coming into their last year of undergrad, or, getting really prepared for that next step, what would be your piece of advice you'd give to them?
Yeah, if students are looking at their senior year, it's really looking at their senior year, right? You stare down this 1 year you have left, and then you have to jump into the workforce. Well, it's easy to put off applying to that job until it's your second semester, until you're almost done last month. But I really like to push students to start exploring right away. We have lots of companies who like to have their jobs for, say, May filled in October. And so really my biggest thing for our students in their senior year is to start looking for those jobs. And even if it's not looking for the jobs, look for who you know out there. If students are doing everything right while they're here for their 4 years, they've been working part-time jobs, they've had internships, they've been involved on campus. And when you're doing all those things, you meet a lot of people. Well, start reaching out to those connections. Look to see who you know. Because if you find somebody that you know in the industry, they're going to be happy to work with you. Say you know Joe at 3M. Joe's going to say, hey, let's get you in here. Let's get you a job. And you'll pretty much be guaranteed an interview at that point. So start right away and start with reaching out to people that you know. And then from there, start branching out and applying to jobs that you want to apply for. I want all students on Handshake. So I really push that for all of our freshmen to get them in. I'll be in most freshman classes this fall along with our other career coaches. There are 3 of us that are career coaches in our office right now. I can't officially say the other two because we haven't made their announcements. We just hired both of them. So they'll be starting here next week. But there are 3 of us, so we have plenty of availabilities. We want students to get in. Students to schedule appointments with us, they can go on to Handshake. That's sdstate.joinhandshake.com, or you can access it through the career development page on the SDState website. And from there, you sign in with your MyState login. It's that same login as everything else on campus. And then you'll be able to go on and sign up for appointments with us through there. On there, you can also see our activities for the semester too as well. And so we do have 3 career fairs outside of that part-time job fair too this fall. The first one is going to be the College of Ag, Food, and Environmental Sciences Career Fair on October 5th. The second will be the Engineering Career Fair on October 19th. And then the third one is going to be the Management, Economics, and Communication Career Fair on November 2nd. So those are our big events coming up this fall. Outside of that, I have lots of things on Handshake, like how do you write a resume? How do you have, I have sample resumes to help students see what this should look like. I have documents to help students prepare for interviewing. I have documents for how to find a job. I even have a document on there to help students negotiate salary. So really, when it comes to our office, we have most of our stuff located on Handshake, and so I really want students to get in there and just to explore Handshake and see what's on there. You'll also see a lot of job opportunities on there too. So
you can get help from the Office of Career Development without even having to step foot in.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the one great thing that we really did embrace, that digital communication during the work from home period of the pandemic. And it's really cool to see that continue. My great favorite story is I had a student once, he was in the combine, had auto steer going in the combine. So instead of sitting there and watching Netflix like he would usually do, he called me up. We set up a Zoom meeting, and I was able to help him edit his resume while he was still working out there in the combine. So really cool to see that we make an impact wherever students are.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for being here today, Stephen, to talk about careers and jobs in the Office of Career Development. This is Between Classes. Thanks for listening.